Stop. Whatever you're doing right now, stop, because in the next 20 minutes, I am going to hand you a weapon. Not a lure, not a rod, not some overpriced gadget with a blinking LED and a dead battery. I'm going to hand you a piece of scientific truth so dangerous, so simple, and so cheap that an entire multi-billion-dollar industry has spent the last 60 years praying you would never, ever find out about it. Welcome back to Forbidden Lures, the only channel on YouTube with the guts to drag the suppressed science, the banned tactics, and the ancestral fishing secrets out of the shadows and put them right here in your hands where they belong. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I'm about to show you. Last summer, East Texas, a dock so sun-beaten the wood had turned white. Sitting at the end of that dock was an old man. No shirt, no sunscreen, just a cane pole, a folding chair, and a tackle box held together by duct tape and, I swear to God, a rubber band. His name was Walter Sims, 81 years old, hands like leather, eyes like a hawk. Now behind Walter, maybe 50 yards offshore, sat a brand new $60,000 fiberglass base boat, 3 guys on board, side imaging sonar, spot lock trolling motor, a rod locker stuffed with $30 custom swim baits in every color known to man. They had fish finders that could tell you the mood of a base at 40 feet. By the time that Texas sun dipped below the tree line, those 3 men, with all their technology, all their gear, all their money, had caught exactly 2 fish. Walter Sims, 19 massive catfish on a cane pole. And the only thing Walter had that those men didn't was a small tarnished coil of copper wire in his shirt pocket. Now I'm going to tell you where Walter learned that trick. I'm going to show you the science behind it. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the tackle industry will never, and I mean never, teach you what I'm about to teach you. Let's go. Part 1. The hidden sensory world. The 7th sense of the apex predator. Before I can explain why copper makes fish lose their minds, you need to understand something the tackle industry has deliberately kept from you. Walk into any tackle shop in America. What do you see? Rows of brightly painted crankbaits, lures with loud tungsten rattles, plastics injected with garlic scent. Every single product on that wall is designed to target 3 senses: sight, sound, and smell. 3 senses, that's it. And here's the lie baked into every one of those products. They want you to believe that sight, sound, and smell are all a fish has. They're not. Every predatory fish you will ever target, salmon, trout, walleye, pike, muskie, catfish, hunts with a sensory system so powerful, so ancient, and so effective that most anglers don't even know it exists. It's called Electroreception, and it changes everything. Here's how it works. Every living creature in the water, every baitfish, every crawdad, every frog, generates a bioelectric field, the rhythmic beating of its heart, the firing of its nervous system, the ion exchange across its gill membranes. All of it produces tiny electrical impulses that radiate outward through the water like invisible sonar. You've heard of the ampullae of Lorenzini, those jelly-filled pores on a shark's snout. A shark can detect a voltage gradient as faint as 5 nanovolts per centimeter. 5 nanovolts. That's a number so small your brain can't even picture it. A shark can find a flounder buried under 2 inches of sand just by feeling the electricity of its heartbeat. But here's what the industry hides from you. Freshwater game fish have this ability too. They don't have the exact same ampullae as sharks, but they have modified neuromasts inside their lateral line system, specialized electroreceptive cells that work like tiny biological voltmeters, constantly scanning the water for the bioelectric signature of prey. And here is where it gets terrifying for the bait fish. A healthy bait fish swimming along produces a steady, quiet electrical hum, but an injured bait fish? A bleeding, struggling, dying baitfish, it produces a violent, erratic electrical burst. Damaged tissue leaks ions. The signal spikes. It is the bioelectric equivalent of screaming underwater. That scream triggers something primal, something hardwired, something a predator cannot ignore. And if you can fake that scream, you don't need the fish to see your bait. You don't need them to smell it. Their own biology will force them to attack. Remember that, because that's the foundation of everything that comes next. Part 2, the galvanic engine, how copper creates life. So the question becomes, how do you create a bioelectric distress signal without spending $150 on some electronic gizmo? How do you fake the scream of a dying baitfish with nothing but metal and water? The answer has been hiding since 1958, and it came from an electrician. Walter Sims learned his trick from a man named James. James was a veteran wireman, 30 years wiring houses and factories along the Sabine River in East Texas. James understood electricity the way a surgeon understands anatomy. And one afternoon, sitting on a riverbank, James said 7 words that changed Walter's life. Wrap bare copper wire around your hook. Walter thought he was crazy until the next morning. Here's the science. When you take 2 dissimilar metals that sit at different positions on the galvanic series chart, and you put them in direct physical contact while submerged in an electrolyte like lake water or salt water, a chemical reaction fires automatically. Your standard fishing hook? High-carbon steel. Sometimes zinc-coated. Steel is an active metal. It wants to give up electrons. It becomes the anode. Copper? Copper is a noble metal. It wants to receive electrons. It becomes the cathode. The moment you wrap bare copper wire around a steel hook and drop it into the water, a microscopic redox reaction ignites. The steel begins to oxidize, shedding electrons. Those electrons race through the copper. They react with dissolved oxygen in the water. And that continuous, unstoppable flow of electrons creates an invisible electrical field that radiates outward from your hook in every direction. This is not a theory. This is not a folktale. This is the exact same electrochemistry that powers the battery in your car. 2 metals, an electrolyte, a circuit. A copper-wrapped steel hook generates a continuous microcurrent hovering right around 0.65 volts. Now, 0.65 volts sounds like nothing to you and me. We can't even feel that. But remember what I just told you. A fish's lateral line can detect microvolts. You're pumping over half a volt of electricity into the water. To a fish, that is a dinner bell blasting through a megaphone. It travels through the water column faster and farther than any scent, any vibration, any flash of color ever could. And to the fish's lateral line, that signal doesn't feel like metal. It feels like a wounded, struggling, easy meal that cannot escape. An 11-cent piece of copper wire just became the most effective fish attractor you have ever used. Part 3, the billion-dollar cover-up. Why the industry hides this now. Here's where this story takes a dark turn. And this is the part that should make you angry. Walk into Bass Pro Shops, walk into Cabela's, head to the electronic fish attractor section. You'll find little devices, plastic housings with circuits inside that you clip onto your line. Their job? To pulse electrical signals into the water. That's it. That's literally all they do. The cheapest ones start around $80. High-end models, $300. They need specialized batteries that die after 8 hours. They have fragile circuit boards that flood and fry. And of course, the manufacturers release a new and improved version every 2 years, so you have to buy the whole thing again. Planned obsolescence, baby. It's the oldest trick in corporate America. Now, I consider this. A spool of bare, solid copper wire from the electrical aisle at your local hardware store costs practically nothing. A 3-foot section? About 11 cents. That 11 cents of copper does exactly what the $80 device does. It generates a biologically accurate electrical field. No batteries, no recharging, no circuit boards to break. It never runs out of power. It works 24 hours a day as long as the metals are touching and the water is wet. Let that sink in. The recreational fishing industry generates billions of dollars in revenue every single year. And a massive chunk of that profit comes from selling you the illusion of high technology. They take a simple, naturally occurring chemical reaction. They hide it inside a fancy plastic casing, they slap a trademark name on it, and they sell it back to you at a 5,000% markup. It's the black box strategy. Keep the science invisible so the customer thinks it's magic, and magic is expensive. Now ask yourself, if every angler in America suddenly realized they could replicate the exact same bioelectric field using a scrap of wire from an old extension cord, what happens to those product lines? What happens to those profit margins? They collapse overnight. And that, right there, is why the magazines won't print this, the sponsored pros won't say it, the retail giants will never ever teach you the science of galvanic attraction, but I will. Part 4, the science of the strike, targeting specific species. All right, now that you understand the weapon, let's talk about how to aim it. Because not every fish responds to this electrical hack the same way. Evolution gave different species different sensory priorities. And if you want to use this, you need to know exactly who you're hunting. Catfish, the electrical kings. If there is one species on this planet that was born to find your copper-wrapped hook, it's the catfish. Channel cats, flatheads, the monstrous European whales. These animals are swimming electrical detection arrays. A single catfish barbel, one whisker, contains over 20,000 specialized electroreceptive and chemosensory cells. 20,000 on one whisker. Drop a copper-wrapped hook to the bottom in muddy, zero visibility water, and a channel catfish can detect that galvanic field from over 40 feet away. They lock on. They track it like a bloodhound. And when they reach your bait, they don't nibble, they don't taste test, they inhale it, because every electrical receptor in their body is screaming, wounded prey, easy kill, eat now. Old-timers who use this trick on catfish don't even bother with fancy bait. The copper does the recruiting. The bait just seals the deal. Crappie and bluegill, the finesse targets. Panfish have incredibly sensitive lateral lines, but they're also skittish. A heavy, clunky rig will spook a crappie off a brush pile faster than a boat wake. So here, the trick is subtlety. Use thinner wire, 20 gauge, and keep it to just a few tight wraps so the hook doesn't get unnaturally heavy. The electrical field does the long-range work. It pulls the school in from deep in the structure. Then a simple live minnow or night crawler on the hook triggers the final commitment bite. Think of the copper as the dinner bell and the bait as the meal. Salmon and trout. The trolling antenna. Here's something fascinating. If you look at the elite charter captains trolling for king salmon on the Great Lakes, you'll notice something strange. Many of them run hundreds of feet of pure copper line. Ask them why, and most will say it's because copper is heavy and cuts through current better than lead core. And sure, that's partly true. But the real reason? That massive length of copper dragging through the water acts as a gigantic galvanic antenna. It conducts electrical currents, charging the water behind the boat, creating an invisible electrical trail. And salmon, fish that navigate by magnetic and electrical fields across thousands of miles of open ocean, instinctively follow that trail. It flat out produces bites when braided line and fluorocarbon go completely dead. The charter captains know, they just don't explain it to their clients. Because if the clients understood the science, they wouldn't need to book the charter. Largemouth bass. The honest exception. Now, I promised you honesty on this channel, so here it is, straight. If you are strictly hunting largemouth bass, the copper wire trick is not your silver bullet. Largemouth are primarily visual and hydrodynamic predators. They hunt by sight and by feeling massive water displacement, the thump of a Colorado blade, the wobble of a vibrating jig. They can detect the microcurrent, but it doesn't trigger their ambush instinct the way it does for a catfish or a salmon. Do not waste your copper on topwater base frogs. I could lie to you and say it works for everything, but that's what the tackle shops do, not me. Part 5. The invisible triggers, water chemistry, and temperature now. If you think you can just wrap wire on a hook, chuck it in the water, and start hauling in fish, slow down. Because the galvanic reaction is not a magic spell, it's chemistry. And chemistry depends on the environment. If you want to master this, truly master it, you need to understand two things: what's in your water and how warm it is. Total dissolved solids, TDS. Your water is the battery. Remember, the water is the electrolyte that completes the circuit between the copper and the steel. Pure distilled water doesn't conduct electricity at all. The galvanic reaction would be dead on arrival. What makes it work is the minerals, salts, and ions dissolved in the water, the TDS. In fresh water with low TDS, the reaction runs slow and gentle. The electrical signal is weaker, but it lasts for hours and hours, steadily drawing fish in from a distance. Think of it as a long, quiet dinner invitation. In saltwater or brackish estuaries, high TDS supercharges the reaction. The voltage spike is massive, sometimes jumping from 1 millivolt to 64 millivolts in under an hour. But here's the trap: because it burns so hot, it exhausts itself fast. Within 30 to 90 minutes, the reaction starts producing excess negative ions and hydrogen bubbles, and those repel fish. Hard. In salt water, the copper wrap is a blitzkrieg tactic. Hit fast, hit hard, and replace the wire before the window closes. The electric hours. Walter's secret window. Walter Sims spent decades dialing in the timing, and here's what he discovered: cold water is a poor conductor. In the freezing early morning hours, your galvanic signal won't travel far. Fish heighten their sensory awareness in the cold, which helps compensate, but the range is limited. The absolute sweet spot? Between 9 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. As the sun heats the water, the molecules speed up. Electrical conductivity peaks. The galvanic reaction accelerates. The signal broadcasts at maximum range and maximum strength. Walter called these the electric hours. And while every other fisherman on the lake was taking a nap in the shade because the topwater bite died at noon, Walter was hauling in monsters in the midday heat. Now you know why. Part 6. The Masterclass. How to build the forbidden copper rig. All right. You've got the science, you've got the strategy. Now it's time to build the weapon. Pay close attention, because one wrong move will kill the electrical circuit, and you'll be sitting there wondering why it didn't work. Step 1, the right wire. Go to your hardware store, electrical aisle. You're looking for solid, bare, uncoated copper wire. 18 gauge or 20 gauge is perfect. Warning, and this is critical: do not buy insulated wire. Do not buy wire with a clear enamel coating, a polyurethane coating, or any kind of craft wire finish. If there is any coating on that copper, any barrier between the metal and the water, the circuit breaks. The hack dies. It must be raw, naked, bare metal, touching the water. Step 2. The right hook, you need a high-carbon steel hook. That's your anode. High-carbon steel gives you the best galvanic potential difference when paired with copper. Galvanized zinc-coated hooks. They're incredibly powerful at first because zinc is wildly reactive. But the signal changes once the zinc burns off. And avoid stainless steel hooks entirely. Stainless sits too close to copper on the galvanic series. The potential difference is tiny. The electrical field will be so weak a fish won't even notice. Step 3. The wrap. Cut a 2-inch piece of bare copper wire. Hold one end against the shank of your steel hook just below the eye. Now wrap the wire tightly down the shank. 5 to 7 complete tight wraps. No gaps between the coils. Why 5? Science and decades of field testing. Fewer than 5 wraps doesn't give you enough cathode surface area to generate a strong signal. More than 7 adds bulk, kills the hook's balance, and drives the reaction too hot, generating repellent iron oxide, which is just rust. Way too quickly. 5 to 7 wraps. That's the sweet spot. Burn that number into your brain. Step 4. The golden rule. Once wrapped, bend the tag end down to secure it. And then do not reach for the super glue. Do not solder it. Do not cover the wraps in epoxy, resin, or nail polish. Nothing. The raw copper must physically touch the raw steel, and both metals must be fully exposed to the water. The second you insulate that connection, the biological battery dies. Instantly. Dead. Step 5, mandatory maintenance. This is the step that separates the guys who swear by this trick from the guys who tried it once and said it didn't work. Because this is a chemical reaction, it degrades. The steel hook slowly corrodes. The copper oxidizes. Over time, bare copper develops a dull green layer called patina, or verdigris. That green layer, it's an insulator. After 4 or 5 trips, your copper wire will stop producing electricity entirely because the patina is blocking the water contact. The fix is dead simple. Before every trip, every single trip, take your pocket knife and lightly scrape the outside of the copper coils. Scratch off the green until you see bright, shiny, raw copper again. Congratulations, you just installed a brand new battery in your hook for free. The paradigm shift. So let's take a step back. Look at what we just uncovered. While the giant tackle corporations spend millions on marketing campaigns to convince you that you need a vibrating, flashing, Bluetooth-enabled, app-connected microchip lure to catch a fish, the truth has been sitting in the electrical aisle of your local hardware store since 1958. For 11 cents, you can turn an ordinary piece of terminal tackle into a localized bioelectric distress beacon. You are no longer just hoping a fish sees your bait. You are no longer praying it catches a whiff of your garlic scent. You are tapping directly into millions of years of evolutionary biology. You are hijacking the involuntary, hardwired, lateral line response of apex predators. This is not superstition. This is not folklore. This is electrochemistry. The undeniable, reproducible science of galvanic corrosion, harnessed to put more fish on the bank than any sponsored pro will ever admit. So, here is my challenge to you. The next time you hit the water, leave the $30 electronic gimmicks at home. Cut a 2-inch piece of bare copper wire, wrap 5 tight coils around your hook. Drop it into the deep and let the science do the heavy lifting. Prove the tackle shop's wrong, nay. And if this video cracked open your mind, if it changed the way you look at a body of water, then do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, share this video with a buddy who's tired of getting skunked. But whatever you do, do not share it with the guy at the tackle shop. We have barely scratched the surface. I've got an entire vault of forgotten techniques, ancestral hacks, and forbidden lures waiting to be exposed. Stay sharp, trust the science, and I'll see you on the water. This is Forbidden Lures, signing off.